are there grounds for impeachment? Well, with us to talk about it is a man in favor of that impeachment, Brazilian attorney Fernando Santiago. Thanks for being with us here.
It's my pleasure.
On France 24. The grounds under which she's being impeached have a bit complicated. Have to do with fiscal bookkeeping. There's talk about obstruction of justice, but that's not precisely in the remit against her. Are there really grounds to impeach her?
Indeed, actually, people make a lot of confusion between the corruption scandals that we're living in Brazil and the grounds on the impeachment. They are mainly not the same. Of course, impeachment is a political act, mainly, but you need some legal grounds to do so. But the legal grounds from which she's being judged is related to the fiscal responsibility law, which she did some mismanagement on the public funding and leaving some accounts unpaid that should not be, and that's what they call, the pedals.
But is it willful deceit? I mean, is it really grounds for impeachment, the fact that there was mismanagement? Is that really grounds for impeachment?
Yes, technically, yes. But of course, the main reason for the impeachment is political. It's related to the behavior she had and her government at all had on the corruption business in Brazil. And then she lost all the political support, and Brazil can't be ruled anymore by her. So they took into consideration the existence of legal grounds giving rise to the impeachment and the political base that she doesn't have anymore. Because we saw a few days ago the vote in the Chamber of Deputies. If she did have governability and if she did have her base with her, there would not be impeachment besides having still grounds for it.
Okay, so you're saying she doesn't have the votes to pass legislation, therefore she should go. What, though, of her successor, Michel Temer? He and his party, which are now in the opposition, they too are engulfed in the Petrobras scandal. Does he have the legitimacy to rule?
Well, so far he has. He's the vice president. He's not directly mentioned and directly implicated on the corruption scandal. His party, which is called PMDB, has always been around government. His party has always been there. So it's pretty casuistic, the fact that he passes into opposition right now, because he wants to be separate from the actual government, the image of the actual government. But he's not directly implicated, at least so far, on the corruption scandal. He's not nominated on that.
All right. There's this sense, and we've talked about it in the France 24 debate with Brazilians, that there's a growing polarization, some even likening it to the situation in Venezuela, where let's call it hate between the left and the right is growing over all of this. Again, the question is, how do you tone it down? How do you make Brazil governable again?
That's $1 million question. And I think there is polarization in Brazil, but they're not as drastic as they could be elsewhere. I mean, you have always people who are partisan of the actual government, but they doesn't seem to be majority. They doesn't seem to be at least a huge part of the population, because the next government, they're going to be clever. They're not cut off the social progress the ex-government made. Mainly the Bolsa Família, which is called the help they give every month to poor people. They already announced that they were not going to cut it off. So there's no effectively reason to a clash like we could see in some other countries. There is some manifestations on the street, but I don't think it is the size of it doesn't seem to be a reason to worry about.
It's overblown. Those saying that Brazil's democracy, its political institutions are really being tested this time.
Yes, they are being tested, but they have been before. You got to remember, it's not our first impeachment. President Fernando Collor has been impeached in the 90s, and we could say that compared to the dictatorship period, we were even closer by then. And the institutions, they were solid, they held out, and they could. We came out with a very bad president for Brazil, which was Sarney. It was worse, very bad years for Brazil economy. But the institutions were there, they held still, and they're still there.
All right. right now, there's definitely the votes to impeach Dilma Rousseff. However, one poll in a newspaper in Sao Paulo saying that the votes are not there in the Senate to actually remove her from office, because there'll be her trial in the Senate in a U.S.-style impeachment trial afterwards. Is she going to hang on to her seat in the end?
I don't think so. I think we have a point of no return already. And she could not stand in office because she could not rule the country anymore.
But again, the senators polled by that newspaper, they're saying they're 13 votes shy of actually removing her permanently from office.
Well, polls are polls. Let's see the result. I think we're going to have it pretty fast. But I don't believe so. We can be surprised, but I don't think she can hold it to her place. Not anymore.
Fernando Santiago, sorry to ask you this, but it is France 24, and we have a president here who's very unpopular.
Okay.
His numbers below 20% in approval rating. What do you think of the concept of recalls when it comes for presidents? Do you think they apply? They should apply everywhere in all countries?
No, I think every country has its specificities, and it's the best way to fail or is to apply the same rule everywhere.
All right, many thanks for that, Attorney Fernando Santiago, for being with us here on France 24. Coming